The Locked On Podcast Network presents the College Sports Big 3 in 30. The 3 biggest stories in college sports. From our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. Bringing you the real story. Why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The College Sports Big 3 in 30 starts now with the biggest story in college sports.
Jared Curtis flips from Georgia to Vandy.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores.
Jared Curtis, huge news, broke yesterday. And it was quite the saga because he flipped, but then he said, hold up, not so fast. And then he came out with a statement later on in the evening and decided Vanderbilt was actually the choice for him, released an official statement cementing that commitment to Vanderbilt. This is obviously the best recruit Vanderbilt's ever had in its entire history. When you saw this news flash across early yesterday and then when it became official, what were the thoughts going through your head? Just your initial reaction when you see a 5-star quarterback committing to Vanderbilt.
My initial thought was this is the most significant commitment flip we've seen since Travis Hunter a few years ago, since he went to Jackson State. And that's not solely related to the talent of the player, immense in both cases, but the magnitude of that player to that fan base in school. Vandy has, like you said, never gotten a recruit like this. They're keeping what 247 ranks as the third best QB recruit in the country, and they're keeping him home. Yeah. Up until 2 years ago, it would have been unheard of. They wouldn't have even been a team that, got a official visit, or if they did, it would have been a courtesy one. But because of the success we've seen and the progress they've made under Clark Lee, Jerry Kill, obviously led by Pavia on the field, that made this possible. We're going to talk later about Pavia and the Heisman race. We've talked about their team being in the playoff hunt. This Curtis flip doesn't happen without those things happening first.
Exactly. The Clark Lee extension, I think, was a huge part of it. And I think just the commitment of the administration to the football program, I think, attracted Jared Curtis. And they actually got a really big commitment on Saturday from a 2027 linebacker, Omari Sanders, who for 3 days was the highest rated recruit to ever commit to Vanderbilt. And then Jared Curtis flips on Tuesday yesterday. And it was surreal just thinking, okay, you look at a Vanderbilt team that fought so hard over the last 2 seasons to get to this point where they got to the doorstep and unfortunately probably had the door slammed in their face. We'll talk about that later on in the week because with signing day, with the flip stuff, the Heisman stuff, we'll push the playoff stuff and bowl projections later this week. But they had the door proverbially slammed in their face. But this was news that it's going to soften that blow. And I think it brings relevance to what Vanderbilt is doing on the field. It goes from, this is just a cute story with Diego Pavia and it's going to all come crashing down when he leaves in a few weeks. And it's just going to be back to normal, same old Vandy, back in the cellar, get your butts down there and just be in last place and know your role and shut your mouth. But that's not true. And you see these little clues throughout the season, this thing might be for real. Vanderbilt hanging around in the fourth quarter, Vanderbilt winning games they shouldn't, thrashing Tennessee on their own home field, winning 10 games for the first time in program history. Those things don't happen without great culture, without belief, starting from Chancellor Diermeyer, all the way down through the student assistants in the equipment room or whatever, however wide you want to cast that net. There's belief within the whole program. And it's not just Pavia. It's not just Clark Lee. It's not just the AD, Candace Lee. It's not Chancellor Diermeyer. It's a collection of the community rallying around the team. And it's a whole community of everything is there And this is now the next step. So it's going to be interesting later on today to see how this signing day unfolds. And like I said, I'm going to react to that tomorrow or later on tonight. Maybe a live stream. I'm not sure. I haven't decided if I want to do a live stream or just release it as Thursday's episode. I'm not sure exactly what I want to do there. I'm still thinking about that. But as the day unfolds, you're going to see a lot of surprises, Mike. And it's going to be like the recruiting impact of Jared. I mean, obviously the obvious impact of what Jared Curtis himself brings to the program. If you want to listen to that, I did record an episode that I put out yesterday. So if you want to look more of a breakdown of Jared Curtis specifically, go check out that episode. But it's going to have some major ripple effects, right?
And it should. I mean, for not just for him, but for how much better that program is now, excuse me, and has been the last 2 years. I mean, you're a competitive team with double-digit wins in the SEC. That doesn't happen by accident. And guys are going to, feel that they're going to want to be a part of that. And one thing that, my hope is that Vanderbilt can become Nashville's team, in the way we've seen SMU do that with Dallas the last couple of years. Miami's been that way, obviously, in Miami. If you can get that identity for your major city, that can be a huge boost for you in a lot of ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Because Vanderbilt is fighting for that foothold, and it's gaining a little bit of ground, but it's fighting for that foothold because Nashville is largely orange, and then it's transplants because it's a rapidly growing city, and that's kind of what you get. So the marketing is going to continue to improve. The eyeballs, the competitiveness, the renovations, the facility upgrades, all of that is going to play a huge part and has played a huge part to why Jared Curtis is here, why Pavia is a Heisman frontrunner, why some of these major 2027 recruits are committing, which we had another big one commit yesterday in Jeremiah Douglas. We'll break him down later on in the week as well because he's 2027. I want to focus on the current incoming class. But
that's when you're getting a commitment from a top receiver from the state of Texas. Mm-hmm. That says you're on the national map.
NFL Sundays move fast. One play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, or it keeps you locked into and locked on every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
He is signed, sealed, and delivered. Kalani Sitake is here to stay, and BYU did right.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars.
If you did not see the news, you've been living under a rock. Kalani Sitake has a brand new contract, and it ends quite literally 3 days of crazy whiplash back and forth. Rumors about him being locked in with Penn State. Some people went as far as to say it was a verbal agreement, a handshake agreement with the Nittany Lions for Kalani Sitake to make the move to State College. Then it kind of flipped back where BYU essentially marshaled the troops is probably the best term to use, and getting their high-powered boosters all together and essentially getting what Kalani Sitake apparently required/requested to make sure he remained in place at BYU. The long and short of it is Kalani Sitake is here to stay, and he's here to stay for the long term. I will be very blunt that in saying that Kalani Sitake, had he left at this juncture, it would have been a major gut punch for BYU to lose him, especially considering what he's built over the past decade at BYU. I don't need to remind many of you that he has now put together 4 10-plus win seasons in the past 6 years alone. He has put together an incredible run. And quite frankly, this 2-year run looking at 2024 and now 2025 in the Big 12 Conference, can you argue outside of maybe the runs in the late 70s/early 80s leading up to the 1984 National Championship season? These are the best back-to-back seasons probably in program history. It's absolutely awesome to see BYU doing what they're doing and stepping up and getting the resources allocated to make sure that Kalani feels like he can win and win at the highest levels and do it at Brigham Young University. It is incredible to think about because I was sitting there in that press conference with Kalani Sitake and Brian Santiago, and David James, who I work with at the KSL Sports Zone, brought up the topic of, hey, just not that long ago, you were sitting in a very similar type news/press conference with then AD Tom Homo, and the term was used. This is an unprecedented contract that BYU had given Kalani Sitake, and essentially the question was asked, well, this is kind of the next evolution of, quote, unprecedented. And they didn't deny it. They acknowledged that this is kind of the going rate. This is what college football at the highest levels requires. On3.com reported, Pete Nakos, and I think the guys over there on 3, that Kalani Sitake is reportedly going to make between $9 and $9.5 million. It is absolutely incredible to think that Kalani Sitake is going to be among, if not maybe the top paid coach in the Big 12 Conference. And if you want comparison's sake, the team BYU plays on Saturday in Texas Tech, Joey McGuire just got a contract extension today as well. You know what he's making? $7 million over 7 years. That's the report out of Lubbock, that he's making $7 million over 7 years. Kalani Sitake, if you believe the reports, this contract is going to take him through at least the end of the decade, and it's going to pay him more than $2 million higher than that. $9 to $9.5 million is top 20 in the entire country. I know the top end, I think what Lane Kiffin is somewhere in the 12 or maybe the $11-12 million range. And we're talking about BYU being what they've aspired to be, and that means being a big dog in college football. The other thing that I love about this is that On3 also reported that it's not just a record contract for Kalani Sitake. It includes record amounts of money guaranteed between $10 and $15 million for NIL and roster retention. That money is on top of the $20.5 million house settlement, which obviously goes up year by year as well. So we're looking at between $30 and $35 million. Now you carve out some of that for basketball and the revenue share and other sports. But let's say conservatively, let's say you take $5 million of the revenue share, allocated to other sports at BYU. You have $15 million in revenue share and another $10 to $15 million. That's $25 to $30 million to spread across your roster to attract and, more importantly, retain top talent at Brigham Young University. We are watching what I have talked on this podcast often about is doing more with more. BYU has put money where their mouth is. This is no longer little sisters of the poor, to use that famous expression about BYU. No longer is it, hey, we do more with less at BYU. No more is it BYU, you come here, it's more like kind of like calling. It's you do something more. No, BYU's paying market rate. Now, the subtext to all this, and some of you have already asked it in the chat, what about talking about staff retention? As I understand it, in talking with individuals in and around this, is that it also includes what I would consider to be record-breaking staff pool, speaking of the amount of money being spread across Kalani Sitake's assistant coaches, off-the-field staff, recruiting staff, everybody. And Kalani Sitake talked about in the press conference, I want everybody in this building, referring to the SAB, where BYU's football offices are housed, to feel like they're important and that they are loved. And that is what I love about this. I'll say it very clearly that when Kalani Sitake went into these negotiations with BYU, it is my understanding that his priorities were, number one, staff, maybe 1A and 1B. Number one, 1A was making sure that his staff was loved up and was rewarded with the money that they felt like they needed in terms of his ability to have top-end coaches on his staff to help BYU have the success, because he knows that he needs to have guys around him. He can't just do it himself. To get his staff taken care of, maybe the 1B was to have the NIL funds allocated, guaranteed, to bring in top talent. By the way, tomorrow is their early signing window openings. Guys like Ryder Lyons and the like, in theory, should be signing tomorrow. And we'll talk more about that as that comes in. And I look at this as 1A was the staff, 1B was the players, and then the second, maybe tertiary thing that Kalani Sitake was worried about was his own pocketbook. That speaks more to Kalani Sitake's character than anything else. I don't know how to make it any more clear to any of you out there if you don't believe that Kalani Sitake is the everyman. He is exactly that. He got so choked up in that press conference, I thought he was going to break down crying at multiple points. And I appreciate the fact that he knows that BYU has stepped up to the plate. And as he said it, there's no better place and no more important place that I want to be and to win at a high level than here. He's a BYU guy. He has got blue running in his veins. He is a BYU fan first and foremost. He had the good fortune of having the athletic genes to play for Lavelle Edwards. And then ultimately, as he said early on in his tenure, 10 plus years ago at BYU, I want to become the Polynesian Lavelle Edwards. This contract all but ensures that is going to happen. BYU fended off Penn State, folks. Penn State is one of maybe the top 2 or 3 teams in the Big Ten Conference when it comes to tradition, resources, all the different things. And BYU went toe-to-toe with the Nittany Lions and said, Neener, we got our guy. Good luck finding somebody else. I don't want to shove it in Penn State's face, but kind of do it at the same time. BYU's here to play ball, and I love it. I do more with more. BYU is in the game, and yes, they have a huge game coming up on Saturday that could ultimately knock down the door in terms of having an opportunity to play for a national championship. Saturday's game, and I'll reiterate it here for any of you who may not be everydayers, is the biggest game in my mind in 41 years. You know what the other game that I can really think of as the biggest is the 1984 Holiday Bowl when BYU ultimately clinched their national championship. And even then, when they won that game, they weren't even assured of winning the national title quite yet. So it's pretty impressive what BYU's doing here. And yes, as Mala points out, don't pretend ticket prices are footing the bill for this contract. No, they're not. BYU's boosters stepped up, and you can insert Min Kim, Jason McGowan from Crumble Cookies, Ryan, whoever you want. The pool of BYU's boosters goes a lot deeper than you might imagine. There are a lot of people who've got some pretty deep pockets, and they are very invested in BYU athletics, and they brought those pocketbooks, those deep pockets to bear to keep Kalani Sitake where he rightfully should be, and that's leading the BYU football program.
NFL Sundays move fast. One play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, or it keeps you locked into and locked on every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you.
It looks like USC is going to finish with the #1 overall ranked recruiting class.
You are Locked On USC, your daily podcast on the USC Trojans.
Back in the day, Pete Carroll, when he was USC's head coach, he would encourage the recruits, hey, go take your visits. So that way, when they finally made up their minds, they know where they wanted to sign on the dotted line, right? I need everyone to keep 2 things in mind. One, when Pete Carroll was doing it, there was no early signing period, okay? That wasn't even part of the process. Back then, it was that first Wednesday of February every year. It was considered a national holiday reserved for, the next batch of, young men who are going to make their dreams come true. College football fans, they would get up early. They would park themselves in front of the TV, or if they had to go into work, it was on their computer. They were watching the commits just roll in. It either was on, ESPN or, West Coast. You would wait till 7 p.m. sometimes to get those last guys to commit, on Prime Ticket. What's Prime Ticket, Mark? If you know, you know. It's before Fox Sports West became Fox Sports West. Out here on the West Coast, it was known as Prime Ticket. Anyways, eventually, the guys were doing the ESPN thing, the Fox, Prime Ticket thing. And then all of a sudden, guys started making their own commitment videos. Really elaborate production type of stuff. Remember Iman Marshall's? That was pretty epic, pretty cool. But again, back when Pete Carroll was doing it, doing his thing, USC owned college football, right? There was There was a fence around Southern California. There was a fence around California, period. Everyone got USC scraps. And, there would be a guy every now and then who would, kind of throw a curveball, guy like DeAnthony Thomas or Deshaun Jackson. But for the most part, it was USC's world, and everyone was just kind of living in it. Times have changed dramatically. USC's had some really good recruiting classes since Pete Carroll left, but it's just kind of been a roller coaster. And a lot of times it's just been middle of the road stuff when you're looking at the overall class rankings. They had some top 10 classes, but before Coach Riley showed up, especially at the tail end of the Clay Helton era, USC recruiting had just literally hit rock bottom. I mean, it was in the crapper. No other way to say it. So things have changed. Coach Riley, Lincoln Riley, he took over. There's now 2 signing periods. You have the transfer portal. That didn't exist when Pete Carroll was a coach. Players are getting paid, and I'm not just talking about NIL. I'm talking about revenue sharing. In fact, look, if you don't have a general manager now running the recruiting / bidding board, you're screwed. Recruiting is still the lifeblood of every single program. Always will be. Always has been, always will be. And you can, fill in a hole here and there using the transfer portal, especially if you evaluate well. But when it comes to recruiting now, today, it's different, right? The head coach is kind of just more of a figurehead. They're still the person that the players want to come and play for. Don't misunderstand me. But it's really the general manager that kind of sets the table, makes the rules, and this is what we're going to be doing during the recruiting process, during this cycle. Not just that season, but also, the season following as well. You have to always be one step ahead, so to speak. So USC went out. They poached Chad Bowden from Notre Dame. He brought that new energy. He brought the fence back. He put it around Southern California. And this is one of the reasons why USC's recruiting class is going to finish number 1. Heavy emphasis on the local flavor. And then they went out of state and they started plucking NFL type of guys. That's what Pete Carroll used to do. Put a fence around Southern California and then go out and get the best guys at their position in the state. So that's why you're going to get the best cornerback in the state of Ohio, Albert Hill. That's why you're going to get the best running back from the state of Ohio, Sean Alston. That's why you're getting Luke Wafel from New Jersey, Jamion Winfield from Texas, Braden Jones, Jonas Williams from Illinois. I mean, the list goes on. I'm kind of rattling off names as I go here. But the other thing that Chad Bowden brought with him was one rule. Well, he brought different rules, but there was one rule in particular, non-negotiable. Once you commit to USC, you're done going on dates with other programs. Period. End of story. Don't talk about it. We don't care. Don't commit until you're ready. And when you're ready and you commit, you'll get taken care of. So this almost could have been a perfect recruiting class for USC. You have to go back to, June, when Xavier Griffin eventually decommitted. I think his decision, he's staying home. He's going to go to Alabama. There was that wide receiver, 3-star guy, Cohen Brown, from the state of Texas. He hung around with his commitment for USC for a couple minutes. Notre Dame said, all right, well, USC likes this guy. He's probably pretty good. They gave him an offer, and Cohen Brown is now committed to Notre Dame. As far as I can remember, he still is. And then the only other one, USC lost out on, if you want to look at it that way, was that junior college transfer, Jaquan Morris, the cornerback from Mississippi. Well, again, he found out Chad Bowden, that rule really mattered. He was serious. Jaquan took that trip to Illinois. USC dropped him. He's now committed to the Fighting Illini. Everyone else in USC's 2026 recruiting class, every single one of them, all 35, are committed. They're sticking with USC on signing day. I mean, Georgia had a chance to probably pass up USC. Then all of a sudden, they took a late hit. Georgia took a late hit, not USC. The number 1 quarterback prospect in the country, Jared Curtis, he's from the state of Tennessee. He's staying home. He's going to Vanderbilt. I mean, that's crazy, right? I mean, again, Tennessee's his home state, but how many times do you see a player pick Vanderbilt over Georgia? You would have to think at the last minute, Vanderbilt said, hey, you know what? Our program's on the rise. We got some money. We're willing to pay you. Come on in. Well, because of that, now all of a sudden Georgia's class ranking, I don't think they dropped from number 2, but all of a sudden they don't have a chance to pass up USC, and nobody else does either, especially if USC gets a couple of late flips. I've been telling you about Caden Dixon-Wyatt, the wide receiver from Mater Dei. He's having his signing ceremony at, I think it's like 7:30 in the morning at Mater Dei, so we'll know what he's doing. Chris Henry, the other wide receiver from Mater Dei. Well, USC's hat is on the table with Ohio State and Oregon. I think he still eventually stays with Ohio State. This is just more of a, I want some more. So his agent is doing his job for Chris Henry. But we'll see. You never know. But yeah, it's you're going to have, USC has 35 commits. 29 of those guys are planning to be early enrollees. That means they're going to be part of the January winter workouts at USC. I think I mentioned on an episode of Locked on USC last week or maybe earlier this week. I apologize. I don't remember which one. Sean Scott, he's actually going to be practicing with USC as they prepare for their bowl game, probably the Alamo Bowl. So think about that. 35 commitments. All 35 are planning to sign. 29 of them early enrollees. That's crazy. That is an insane number. I mean, that's discipline. Chad Bowden's no-visit policy worked almost to perfection, except for, Xavier Griffin. And yeah, you would always love to have that 5-star, but pulling a 5-star from Alabama, who grew up wanting to go to Alabama and has family who says, we really want you to go to Alabama, you're probably going to end up being a Crimson Tide, right? So whatever. Doesn't mean USC is done. Doesn't mean USC is done with this class. What I can tell you is there's going to be no drama. They're going to finish number 1. And so for all of you out there who are so dead set against that no visit policy, not only did it work, it's helping USC sign the number 1 ranked recruiting class. Think about that. Chad showed up in January. So he had a little bit of an effect with USC's final class in the 2025 class signing in February. And then that rule was put in place and everything as far as the spring transfer portal worked out to USC's benefit. So yeah, he comes over, puts a fence back around Southern California, gets the NIL working at an elite level right now. And now all of a sudden, you've got USC doing what people anticipate from USC every offseason. Maybe not have the number 1 ranked class, but at least have a top 5 class, right? And again, I'm not all about the stars. With that being said, you still want to go get the best players. And if USC is beating other programs like Ohio State, Oregon, Texas A&M for players, LSU, I mean, you pick a program, USC has gone head-to-head with them, and they've won a recruiting battle. That's what you want from USC. That's what Lincoln Riley is doing. That's what Chad Bowden is doing. That's what the entire staff is doing. And what I like about this rule is you're finding players who understand what the word commitment means, and you're starting to instill some discipline into this incoming class. And they're really tight-knit. I mean, 29 out of 35 early enrollees. It's going to be a fun spring camp in 2026 as well. Should be fun, at least. All right, so there you go. No one thought USC could do it. They did it. They are going, unless something strange happens, USC will finish with the number 1 ranked recruiting class. And that's a job well done. You're coming off of a 9-3 season. Yeah, I know I've been really critical about that. You still accept it. You like it, especially compared to what USC's had the previous 2 years. But you think, man, 10-2 was so within their grasp. It's okay. It's all right. It's all right. 9-3. Put a smile on your face, and you look forward to this recruiting class coming in.